Hey guys, back in my nice bright shop again tonight. Definitely loving how that's working out. I can see things so much better and working just so much easier out here now that I can see what I'm doing. But been spending the last couple nights out here, not so much working on knives. Uh, I did start one more knife as well as a template, which we'll show those in a little while. But for the most part, I've been working on some tool maintenance. And I don't know how interesting you guys will find this, but I figured I'd go over it anyway. First thing I had to do was I had a couple problems actually with my Shopsmith. And I really love this tool for the most part. In a perfect world, I would have all the separate tools just so I don't have to keep going back and forth, setting stuff up, taking stuff down. That does eat up quite a bit of time, and you always got to readjust everything, re-zero everything, and all that. But for the most part, it's a pretty decent machine for what it is, and I'm definitely glad I have it, or at least the versatility of each of the functions that it can give me, as opposed to just having maybe one tool or two tools. But in the future, I definitely like a dedicated drill press, like a floor model, full-sized. I'd even like a dedicated table saw, as this one leaves a little bit to be desired with accuracy and all that. But I mean, for the most part, it's become very useful. I got a bandsaw for it. I need to tune up a little bit over there in the corner. I've used that joiner quite a bit. The table saw, the drill press. I'm going to use the lathe here in the near future. And I've even turned it into kind of a makeshift buffing machine, which has worked great. But enough about that. Problems I had with it, first off, was the quill feed was sticking really bad. I wasn't sure why. I'd have to pull pretty hard to get this to go forward. And then I would usually have to return it back up into the headstock here by hand. And what ended up being the issue was there's actually a coiled spring in here, very similar to a tape measure in that regard. It's just a flat piece of spring steel that's wound over itself several times. And there's actually a way to increase and decrease the tension using this screw and turning the piece within this headstock here. But what had happened, the spring tape, if you want to call it that, had kind of telescoped in towards the inside here, and that was just kind of hanging things up and impeding the progression. So took this all apart, corrected that, and as you can see, it's working perfectly again. Another thing which was an even bigger issue for me was the speed control wasn't working. I could easily speed it all the way up, but when I went to slow it down, it would get a little more than halfway to the slowest setting, and this would just start binding up real bad. And the way the speed control works is actually pretty cool. As you rotate this, there's a little arm that pushes some flywheels together or spreads them apart. It's actually kind of like a regular pulley, but it's two separate halves that are sandwiched together, and they're kind of tapered towards the center. So as you rotate this, they'll actually spread apart, making the center diameter smaller, while the a very similar pulley on the motor itself will come together and make that a larger diameter, and vice versa. When you want to slow the machine down, they'll sandwich back together, making a large diameter, while the pulleys on this will spread apart. So it's actually pretty cool. But the key in the shaft for this upper pulley was loose and had fallen out and kind of bound everything up so that the pulleys couldn't go all the way back together. So I had to completely disassemble that and put the key back in place and fix that. So it's working perfectly again. So I'm very happy with that. Try to speed up a little bit here as we're running out of time pretty fast. But another thing I did was I modified my flat platen. Before I had kind of a piece of angle iron for a bracket, and the way I attached that was with a nut and a bolt and some washers. So I kind of had to finagle things together and make sure everything was set just right before I tightened it up. It was a huge pain, took forever, and I never really got it perfectly where I wanted it without a lot of effort. So I fabricated some new brackets that I could tap directly, and also adjusted those so that this bolt is all the way back against the groove. So I can just quickly take this off, quickly put it all the way back on, and as long as it's bottom out, it's exactly where I want it. Another thing I did was I replaced the flat platen itself with a new piece of steel. Just some 3/8 thick mild steel. I'd like to get some hardened steel one of these days, but these wear slow enough that it's not a huge issue. And as you can see, I only tapped and threaded the top, so I like to minimize the amount of holes I need. Just because if you press into this area with the belt running, it can show up just a little bit on the blade, as that does detent just a little bit, depending on how your blade hits it. But this bottom piece, again, is just for support, as you can see. So that works very well. It's made a world of difference in my grinding already. It's much smoother and just much flatter. So I'm very happy with that. I did make a video on an order that I got from USA Knife Maker. We're going to show a couple products that I got from them here. I'm going to try to load that video tonight or tomorrow, just because there's a lot of things. Actually, you can see one of the products here is my shop apron. A lot of things I got from them for some future projects as well as some present projects that'll really help my knife making. So definitely excited about that. Hopefully, like I said, I'll get that video up soon and you guys can see what I got and just some of the things I plan to work on in the future. But this is the knife I was talking about that I started on. I just wanted to try some of the belts out that I got. I got quite a few belts, which I went over in the other video again. But I'm very impressed with how they're working so far. As you can see, my belt rack is a little more populated. I got some Blaze belts, some Norrax engineered abrasive belts, which I use to put the polish on this. As you can see, we've got an almost mirror finish. All that's really left to do is put it on the buffer, maybe with a couple progressively finer compounds, and see if we can take those striations out there. But as you can see, you can even see the top of my head and my phone there. So I'm very pleased with how those belts are working. And even if I left the finish just like this, I'd be pretty happy with that. I'm not sure if I'll do the blade bevel there, just because that's usually the first thing that gets scratched up. And mirror polishes scratch very easily, so might leave that kind of textured. Who knows? But as far as handles, I'm going to try my first micarta handle. Got some canvas micarta here. And going to use some brass pins. Hold that all together with some epoxy. And we'll see how that goes. I did drill a lanyard hole in this initially, but I think it's a little bit too close to the corner. And I don't want to drill out the micarta there, as I think it'll be a little bit too weak. And also I counterbored that a little bit, which I wasn't thinking. Should have left that flat, so that'll weaken it even more, and it just won't really look right. So I'll probably cover that up. Might move one to the back here if I really need a lanyard, but I think I'll try it without for now. But that's pretty much what I've been working on the last couple days. We're kind of running out of tape here pretty quick. Got one more thing I wanted to show, but I think I'll go ahead and make a separate video for that since it's kind of aimed at one specific person right now anyway. So that's pretty much it for the update tonight. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll talk to you later.